That's why this podcast went on break, because... All right, well, Manu, I guess you're starting this episode then.
Oh, I'm starting the episode. All right. Well, everyone, it has been a minute or two or three. Welcome to another episode of the Blue Banana Podcast, revamped. How are you guys doing? It's been a while.
How's it? I thought I saw you guys last week. Awkward silence. This is a great start.
You're breaking the illusion right away.
You've absolutely broken the illusion. Sophie, I haven't seen you in several months. You haven't been over to the office. We haven't had a Google Meets call. We haven't had anything. What's that about? Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Easter's coming up soon.
It's basically almost Christmas again.
I think we might have skipped right through Thanksgiving, Halloween.
I don't know if we skipped through Halloween.
No, actually, we did have a Halloween episode.
Well, we tried to make it look spooky and kind of failed.
Sort of failed.
Shall we give people a little bit of context for us being back, or shall we first jump into today's wonderful episode and then do that afterwards?
Let's do it afterwards. That's a hook. That's a hook, that is. You got to stay
I like
till
that.
the end.
I like
Yeah.
that. Well, you're gonna have to watch till the end and find out why we weren't there.
It's a very interesting story, maybe.
But then something happened that no one expected.
And it changed the podcast forever.
Today we're talking about Blue Lock. Is that correct? Am I? Question mark?
So the fun thing is that we prepared a Blue Lock topic now months ago when I think there were only like 4 or 5 episodes out. We've had such a hiatus that the series is now almost over.
So I think I suggested that we discuss Blue Lock.
Which I find very interesting in retrospect.
Yeah. Before I share my opinion, I want to ask you guys, have you guys, like, where are you guys up to?
Oh, caught up.
You've caught up?
At a very frustrating place, mind you.
All right, so I will say, I will tell the audience what I told you guys when we had our re-meeting, our reunion last week. As much as I'm ashamed of it, because like as we'll get into probably, Blue Lock doesn't have the biggest budget. It was kind of like a little bit of a dark horse anime, I would argue, before it came out. And I loved Chainsaw Man, but I'm more emotionally invested into Blue Lock right now.
And despite your shirt,
This is not throwing shade at Chainsaw Man because, yeah, very big Chainsaw Man fan here too. It's just, I feel like Blue Lock has somehow, despite the arguably not best animation and everything,
what? It has flawless CGI, Manu.
captured my shonen spirit. It has tickled
My shonen balls.
the spot in my brain. Yeah, it has tickled my shonen balls. It haven't been tickled well in a long time by a new series, I will say, of course.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I really enjoyed Chainsaw Man. Once I caught up, I read the whole thing, so that probably plays into this a bit. But I had no real driving force to keep watching it every week. As soon as I finished that like handful of Blue Lock episodes, I was like, oh my god, this is a Sunday ritual. And I kind of fell off for a couple of weeks, but it's kept up. I cannot believe how consistent I've been with it. And I do think of it as a bit of a guilty pleasure because I watch it and I go, look, this isn't peak fiction, but my god, my balls are tickled.
And I will say, like, there's been like a lot of anime I've really enjoyed the recent year or two, but it has been a while. I think I would say it has been ever since Jujutsu Kaisen that I've actually had an anime where I was kind of like, I wish there was another episode I could watch right now. Like, oh my god.
It doesn't help that Blue Lock often ends on very frustrating cliffhangers, I think.
Blue balls,
Yeah.
am I right?
Yeah. Almost every week it's a case of blue balls.
But consistently, and like like it's never that I'm like, oh, come on, it's the same old for. Like, no, it's unpredictably predictable. Does that make sense? Does that make
I
sense?
feel like every episode I get into this mood where I'm like, okay, no, it's gonna end. And then it ends like 2 minutes sooner than I thought it would.
See, this is something that is very interesting because as far as I know, and please correct me, I've been trying to stay away from the manga spoilers as well
Me
as
too.
I can. But as far as I know, it's still ongoing as a series, right? Is that correct?
It is ongoing, yes.
And so like like that fact in the back of my mind every episode, I'm kind of like, it's still ongoing. Like, they can't beat those guys yet. They can't beat the strong guys yet.
They can beat the strong guys because then you just get more strong guys, and that's how like the sports anime formula is.
And again, I know there's going to be people who have read the manga who will be like, oh my god, you have no idea what's coming. But like, I'm just saying, without knowing anything what's about to happen in the manga, my expectation would be that it's all about this academy and becoming Japan's top striker. But I think it would be really sick if the story actually, kind of like Haikyuu did at the end, where you kind of leave that like school like internal setting and then they actually like start playing with like other types of players instead only strikers and stuff, but also like I know they brought up the midfield dude and everything, so
So fun fact, I'm not caught up with the Haikyuu manga, I'm just caught up with the anime, but I do know that they expand into different territories, and it's because of One Piece. Because there is this panel of Hinata holding up Volume 1 and saying that his favorite character is Zoro. And I was like, what is the context behind this? And yeah, he's trying to get along with his Portuguese roommate.
that's the only reason I know about the dude.
That manga panel flew like right past me. I had zero idea. Really?
I needed to know the
Really?
context immediately. I was like, oh, that's cool.
It's the Haikyuu one, and then it's the other one. I don't know what anime that's from, where the guy's like reading and it's like One Piece crazy good this week. I don't know which anime that is.
I just know it in meme form.
I don't know what it is either, but there's another one where it's like, what are you talking about? I was talking about One Piece. I think it's a very dark anime.
It's not One Piece, but I know that Jujutsu Kaisen has like a lot of like IRL references.
Going back to One Piece though, my mum was telling me that a Korean drama also mentioned it. I can't remember what Korean drama it was, and she was like, the only reason I knew what they were talking about is because of you, and I felt like I could be young again, understanding what One Piece is.
Now that you brought me on that train, I have to like we have to go back to Blue Lock very soon, but like one thing I was very shocked to find out, a friend of mine went to Seoul last week and he learned from a Korean friend that apparently there's a lot of dog eating going on in Korea.
Yes.
That has been outsourced to the outskirts so that tourists don't see the dog eating. Is that true?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
That is like the most stereotypical Korean thing. Like if you're trying to say a mean thing to a Korean, it's like go eat a dog. Like
Yeah.
that's just how I've always known it. Yeah.
See, I have like misplaced stereotypes. I kind of put that on China for some reason.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if China do it too, but yeah, very much a thing.
I mean, to be fair, looking at those wet markets, it's kind of basically all the animals. That was just like a small little anecdote that like shocked me like a piece of information that shocked me this week because I was not familiar with it. But yeah, Sophie, what has been your take on Blue
tell
Lock?
us, Sophie.
Yes.
I will have to start with the disclaimer that I actually didn't end up keeping up with the anime, didn't read the manga. I must have watched about 5 or 6 episodes, basically everything that was out at the time when we had said that we were going to first record, and I decided that it really didn't hook me.
Defend yourself.
For a number of reasons. Okay, so I think a large part of it has to do with the fact that I obviously started because of all the hype surrounding it. You know, it was around the same time as the World Cup, and so everyone was going crazy about Blue Lock at the time. And so I went in with very high expectations, I think. On a personal level, I understand that a big reason why people like it is because of the subversion of the typical trope that teamwork is everything in sports, and this is all about, no, you have got to be the best striker. I don't think I can relate to that, is the best way to put it.
You are a bit too happy and Nakama focused for that. Yeah.
I will say though, and like I might be
Ego girl.
misguided here. I feel like isn't it a classic case of the author basically being like, okay, we're gonna start like the character starts with the like the character's kind of right, but he's like not like skilled enough to like actually, you know, do what he needs to do. So because the guy could have scored the goal and he should have scored the goal, so like kind of by chance he learns the wrong lesson even though he has the right mindset. Then he goes all ego, and in the end I would just imagine that the story kind of goes in a direction where like, no, it goes back to team play. And
Exactly, and that is my next point. This is my next point, is that I am unsure as to what the mangaka, where the series is going, because like I'm very unsure as to what the message
Is that a good
is. Like
thing?
the first, no, not in
what
a
the
good
message
way,
is?
because I feel like in the span, if you're saying that you think that like it's getting unpredictable and you think in the long term that's where the story is going. The way that I experienced the series, in the first 5 or 6 episodes, however limited number of episodes I watched, I felt like it started as, oh, it's a dog-eat-dog world, you have to step on others to get ahead. And then the next episode or 2 episodes after, immediately they're like, okay, we're not gonna say teamwork is the key, but really there is teamwork and we do have to work as a team. And it's like, okay, so what was the point then in setting up this premise? If you're gonna stick with this premise, you gotta, you know, like stand your ground.
I think they do. In Sophie's defense, it does very quickly switch from everyone's on their own to, oh, all of a sudden we're one big team and we've got to figure out how to win the footballs. But like after that, it does devolve back into the more individual focus.
Which I feel like was fairly foreseeable, right? That they kind of like be like, okay, now you now have to build a team. But then, like, obviously the team gets turned against itself, kind of. I feel like, going back to my point earlier, I feel like in a way very predictable, like unpredictably predictable, because often you think something's gonna happen, but then you're kind of like, no, and then it still happens. But for me, in a good way, like, for example, that, like, I personally felt like, no, like, they're now becoming a team, so obviously they're gonna have to face off against each other, and there's gonna be like some betrayal and so on and so forth.
I thought it was going to go down that route where it's like, oh, they're the Z team, and now they've got to climb the ranks in the Blue Lock. But then it was all like, no, fuck everything. Different thing now.
I was just gonna say, I think maybe if everything else about the anime or about the series was done to a high level, then maybe I would have been more forgiving or understanding of that. But I didn't find all the other elements all that particularly interesting either. Like, I understand that if I was being gracious, I would say that it's an interesting idea that they've decided to mash up all of these different ideas. Like, you know, it's similar, like, it feels a lot like Squid Game crosses Kuroko Baskets, like, you know, slash like other sports anime.
It's sports death game.
But that's if I'm being gracious. Like, if I decided to be a bit, I don't know, harsh, I would just say it feels unoriginal.
And that's fine. I think that's completely fair. I am a big sucker for death games, no matter how good or bad they are.
Yeah.
If your premise has something along those lines, I'm just immediately hooked. It's another guilty pleasure of mine. So that's why Blue Lock really sort of gripped me there, because I was like, sports and death, I can do this. This is happening, yes.
First of all, I'm very happy we have like a contrarian opinion here, because I feel like often we agree on stuff. So I have a really hard time arguing against Sophie.
There is no argument.
Yeah, objectively, like, I mean, again, the animation budget is low. Like, you spend a lot of time. I think someone made like a cut of like what a match would look like without Isagi playing like puzzle games. And it was like 10 seconds or something. It's like Blue Lock without the monologues or something. It's not like fantastic animation. The CGI looks a little bit sloppy. It's very, like, in some ways very generic.
It's like two flavors of generic being fused together. It's like you get your chocolate and your strawberry and you're like, I know these things separately, and together they're also not that great, but this is an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's something we've talked about before. Right now, which I really appreciate, we have a lot of anime trying to not be a generic anime, which I think is a great thing, because like a lot of stories and shows are trying to like reinvent, like, you know, like shonen and like anime overall, and like what the medium can and should do.
Waiting for the isekai genre to do that as well.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different story.
Did you guys see the latest isekai thing? The guy who turns into a vending machine and is sent to another world?
No.
I saw a trailer for that. It looks
I think I saw the title.
horribly hilarious.
I will say I've been like watching one recently. That's another guilty pleasure of mine, which is like, I don't know what the English title is. It's basically the girl who puts all her like points, all her player points into vitality. I'll recommend that for another time. But anyways, going back, yeah, I think like what Blue Lock does well. So I think it has like strong points, which I do want to talk about too. But I feel like the base thing, why it works, as you said, Liam, it like takes a bunch of like very stereotypical concepts and meshes it into one very successfully.
Or unsuccessfully, in my opinion.
With just one layer of subversion, just one.
It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. I feel like the feeling why it feels so fresh and fun to watch is just because it mixes together established genres in a really interesting way.
But also, like, you say the animation and the CG. Okay, I'm not going to defend the CG, because every time I see like a wide shot of it and you just see the models going it looks horrible. That's why they only cut to it for like a second and then they've got to go back. The animation I think is actually really good. Or maybe not the animation, the art style. I really love the art style whenever there's like a metaphorical manifestation of a monster. I love the puzzle pieces. I love every character's like individual sorts of energies that they have. I think that's done really well.
If we go to the individual characters' energies, I would actually say the way that I feel about the characters again is like, I feel like they've just picked out characters from other animes that I am familiar with and have just placed them together.
Yes, they play football.
But now they're playing football instead of volleyball. It's amazing.
Yes! So I feel like it's really like such a subjective thing because I kind of can see why that would be annoying for you. And again, I don't have a great argument. I just think like it's kind of like you take like a team and make like you take like Zoro, and then you take like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, and you take like, you know, Gon or something, or Hisoka, and then you put them on a soccer field. I don't know. I personally have fun with the way that like these characters basically have quote unquote superpowers, but they're portrayed in like they're still soccer players, and it's not like they're actually doing anything like supernatural per se, though you could argue that like some of the skills they have are very next level. I think the anime does a great job taking like something like very everyday-ish, IRL-ish, and like applying that kind of like shonen-y power system to it, where the main character has like his ability technically is stealing other people's powers, right?
Spatial awareness and general absorbing stuff.
Not reinventing the wheel, but I think like in the context of sports, and like my favorite sport at that, very enjoyable to see. And like one thing I wanted to say about the art style, Liam, I'm not sure if you guys have seen Aoashi, which is another soccer anime that has been going on.
I almost watched that instead of Blue Lock, because Owl means blue, does it not? So I thought, oh, this is the one. I'm going to click on that.
Yeah, blue legs, Ashi's leg, yeah. And that one has a really decent story, but it has like that Tokyo Revenger kissy mouth. Genuinely is like what I stopped watching that, even though it had like a really good story. It's just like the characters all look
I never
like this.
started Tokyo Revengers. I got put off because there was so much hype happening on social media that I was like, whatever, you guys have fun with your thing. And now I guess I'm kind of glad that I haven't, because everyone sort of turned against it towards the end.
It's
That's
like
another
one of those
anime
anime
that
that
I-
I started,
started and didn't
then just
finish, yeah.
dropped. Yeah.
Now we're finishing each other's sentences. I think that's how I feel about Blue Lock, though. It's like, for me, I think because of just the sheer volume of new series that comes out now, you have to really hook me in the first 5 episodes or so, because if it doesn't, I'm not going to continue. And I feel like Blue Lock is something that failed to do that alongside Tokyo Revengers. Like, I think it's an enjoyable watch that maybe back in my teenager days where I had all the time in the world, I would have watched it.
No, you don't. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to justify yourself, Sophie.
This is a perfectly valid take. Neither of us disagree.
No need to. Yeah. Again, I can totally see your point. It's just for whatever reason, I'm really in love with this anime.
Do you think it's because both of you guys have a history in soccer, like in playing football?
Oh, maybe.
For me, absolutely.
I guess I did play soccer for 10 years during primary and high school, so there is that connection with it to me. I never played it seriously like they are. Like, I was just more of a like, I play it for fun with my local club and at high school.
But I guess it sort of like still gives you some level of relatability and some sort of, you know, nostalgia watching it. Like for me, I never really played football. I think that's another thing that it doesn't like bother me so much, but what I liked about other sport animes is that they explain the sport.
Yes, Blue Lock does a very bad job at explaining football. It's especially difficult because all of the characters are strikers, so you don't even really get to explore the other integral positions on the field.
Which again is like arguably one of the weaknesses that I for some reason enjoy.
But it's amazing.
Is that technically all of them are strikers,
Yeah.
but many of them don't have actual striker qualities, but like really good defender qualities. So for example, in the most recent episodes, they're playing against the like top 3 players again in the Blue Lock, right? And one of the guys, he's basically just a really, really good defender.
But like
number
the
3 guy.
unnaturally strong guy who's always just like
Yeah.
scared.
You could say that Isagi is basically like a really good midfielder.
Yeah,
also,
yeah, you could, yeah.
argue. But again, I think it's kind of fun, like when you remember that they're all supposed to be strong, or like in the first team that they form in their block. Like there's the one dude, we don't even know what he's capable of. He's just been like in the goal for like every game.
And we just only recently saw him in the additional time being like, finally, I get to not be the goalie.
So I wonder, it would be funny if he'd turn out to be like actually super strong or something. That'd be fun. But it definitely plays a role, because I feel like, for example, one reason Haikyuu was like so successful is even though I was like really not interested in volleyball whatsoever, the way they explained it and portrayed it, like it was very easy to get into, and like they did a really great job taking a sport that might not have been interesting for a lot of people and like portraying it in a really cool way where you're like, I kind of want to like try out volleyball now for a change.
I had zero interest in volleyball. I'd even played it briefly in high school. Still had no interest. Haikyuu, it makes me want to play volleyball. Just thinking about it makes me want to get out there right now.
Yeah, and I know I've talked about this anime a lot, but like that's the same reason why I like really loved Slam Dunk, because it's a similar, like same thing, and I guess Slam Dunk being one of the OG sport animes like pioneered that idea of starting like the sport at the same time as your main character and actually understanding the sport. Because I guess it came down to the mangaka trying to introduce basketball to Japan. I didn't get that level of, I think, understanding about soccer watching Blue Lock. And so those positions mean nothing to me.
It really doesn't help because the majority of the series, you're not even seeing two full teams play. And if you are, you're not seeing them play properly. You're watching them squabble and struggle and overcome egos and such. Like, you never really dive into the sport. Like, I was shocked. In one of the latest episodes, they actually have to do a throw-in for the first time that I can remember in the entire series. Because the ball just like never goes out for whatever reason, or almost never.
If you already have some sort of connection to soccer, like football, it just makes it a lot easier, I think, like to fall in love with that. Maybe also because Blue Lock kind of targets it more towards an audience that is a little bit familiar with the sport, which was why it was really smart launching it with the World Cup.
World Cup, yeah.
Kind of too.
Stupidly
Yeah.
smart.
Which was a very smart marketing move, because then you can get people who usually maybe don't watch.
Like, say Sophie, who suggested that we watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for that, Sophie. Your sacrifice is my gain.
I will say though, something that I actually really enjoyed were those like cute little slice of life moments at the end in the outros.
The additional times.
Yeah, the additional time. Those were very cute. I enjoyed those a bit.
They give you that much needed levity because a lot of Blue Lock, like a lot of matches just
intense.
outright end with crushing people's dreams and having them on the floor in tears and despair. So you really need that breath at the end where they're all just like hanging out in a dorm and someone's finicky about cleaning or something.
No, I totally agree.
So I think that's enough, Blue Lock.
You would say that, you hater.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
clearly would say that.
Someone
you do.
doesn't
bit
appreciate
over it.
peak
I'm a
fiction.
bit over it. Before I turn lots of other football fans against me.
I feel like that you have had bad takes on this podcast before. It's not one
Terrible
of them.
takes,
Again,
How dare you?
We've had to cut some of your takes out. They've been that bad.
That's why this podcast went on break, because all the previous episodes were just like, we can't air this. Sophie's gonna get cancelled.
Sophie just kept saying racial slurs for an hour and a half, and we just like, we can't put this on.
we're just sitting here like, oh my god, what are we gonna do?
So awkward.
Shall we quickly talk about what happened to the podcast?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But before we do that, I guess related to that, I want to say a big thank you to all of our members who stayed on being members
for some
during
reason.
that long hiatus. Not only that, but I want to thank members who decided to join whilst
yeah,
we were
that's
gone.
crazy.
Really?
So there were members who joined 17 days ago. Lan Matthias, looking at you. You're a top person.
Yeah, but also crazy. Why would you do that?
I mean, thank
Maybe
you.
it was the motivation.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe they felt like we needed motivation to come back.
And if you'd like to continue to motivate us further,
Rejoining 1 month ago, Andre, Sidonius, Damien. Big shout out to all of our members, and we do appreciate it.
We do
We're a little
indeed.
crazy, but in a good way.
No, that is really crazy. I mean, we also, like, in general, I feel like the main reason why this kind of fell apart for a second was there were like a bunch of reasons. It was we ended up not having a fixed recording date because Sophie is working like 12 jobs, like 7 days a week.
yes, Sophie.
It was just me? Okay, it was just me.
that's
Let's
it.
not forget
That's
that people
that's
got
the-
sick or people
that's
went
the entire
overseas.
reason.
It's just me.
It was a bit more
It's just Sophie.
complicated than that. There was this string where Manu went overseas for quite a while. Then immediately after he got
Liam.
back,
No,
Sophie
Liam.
went
It was just me.
overseas.
It was just me.
Yeah, then Sophie gave me COVID and forced me to not be able to record. I'm blaming you because Sophie didn't give me COVID. I gave me COVID somehow. Twice. I've gotten COVID twice over the course of the Blue Banana podcast. And that's like 4 weeks that my condition has prevented us from recording.
I think I might have caught COVID again, and again I was asymptomatic.
The fact that you say I think makes me very jealous.
The second time, I didn't test positive the entire time through, but everyone who I had spent time like immediately before I had felt a little unwell also had COVID or like tested positive to COVID. So I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I don't know, around the same time I was sick, a lot of people were also having negative results to whatever they had.
I was getting a lot of negatives when I had it the second time as well.
That was one thing, and I think like we kind of also, well, as you know, synchronizing 3 people, and then we put up the backgrounds, which you can tell is not there anymore. in general, and then the editing process. Like, there were a lot of things, like just setting up every time. It was like a fairly big time commitment, fairly late in the day because of Sophie's other work jobs, which again, not a shade on you. Like, how dare you be work so much? Yeah, terrible. But like, it ended up being like a 1 hour podcast would basically end up being 3 hours of us
Often longer.
chatting, setting up, technical difficulties, yes. And then Sophie and Liam, like it would already be late for me in Japan, but then for you guys it would be like 2 hours later even than that. Maybe like 11 p.m. or something.
There were some times when we finished at a disturbingly clce to the 10:30, 11 mark after starting a recording at like 7 p.m.
Which is not optimal. And then on top of that, our producer and editor got COVID too, and was basically knocked out for almost 2 months as well.
And on top of all of that, there was the ongoing... Things just weren't structured efficiently, I would say, on any level. Which issues that we've all sat down and spoke about. Like, for example, a typical episode of this podcast would take 12 to 15 hours to edit, which I found shocking.
Maybe even longer.
Yeah, maybe. Let me quickly get a glass of water for this.
This is how serious it
required.
is. Manu
So we'll
needs
get our water.
to emphasize the gravity of this situation.
The basic gist is that all four of us had 4 separate issues that made it very difficult for all of us to get together and actually make something.
That's why we decided also to like have this podcast be sustainable, but also, keep it up and make it like as frictionless as possible. We decided to like, even though we really liked having the seamlessness like setting of like the backgrounds and everything and like the very like intense editing stuff, we decided to like simplify it a little bit, as you can see with the new layout, of course, no backgrounds, but in the end we decided like, while these things are nice to haves, like I think you guys and us, we prefer having a podcast consistently in the first place.
In before all of the comments, no backgrounds, I'm not watching anymore.
Yeah, exactly. There's like nobody even made it to this point in the video. Just simplifying things a little bit and then like building from here is I think the goal from now. And please like let us know if that like feedback, if anything, that you guys would want to hear. We also I think decided to change the member format a little bit. So for now, instead of the bonus episode, which makes it a little bit hard to, I guess, give access to like non-members. How did it build the model? We basically said it'll release the episode early.
Episodes.
Exactly. And also we will start shouting out new members.
As Sophie
and I guess
did.
previous members, as Sophie did, yeah, in the episodes. And we will also be taking the member questions that got answered in the member only sections and like put those maybe one or two into the current episodes instead. So there is a little bit more of an incentive there also to be active if you're already supporting the podcast. Is there like anything else that I forgot in that regard, like book housekeeping wise?
Bookkeeping.
Yeah, if anyone wants to do our books, that would be a big help.
If anyone will want to do our bookkeeping, that would be
accounting.
fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, I'm very happy to talk about more anime.
And just stuff in general. Happy to talk.
Yeah, just happy to talk. I missed you guys.
That's
But
been a
yeah, I
while.
missed you guys too. Dude, Sophie missed us so much, she even broke her foot.
This is basically how much time has lapsed since we last talked. I have since graduated from uni. I have finished my law graduate program and submitting to actually get admitted to the admitted as a lawyer. I
What, you have?
cut my hair much shorter I haven't been
Congratulations.
admitted yet,
Oh.
but I've submitted and then it's about a 5-week process. So hopefully I will get accepted. It took a long time for me to submit as well. They ask you a whole lot of questions that you have to answer and I put that off for weeks. I could have actually been probably admitted by now, but it's probably good timing because if I had actually submitted when I was initially intending to submit, I would have had to walk down with a broken foot and hobble down to get my picture taken. So I'm glad that I haven't.
Have you got the moon boot off yet?
That's another thing. So I broke my foot where I was supposed to keep my moon boot on for 6 weeks, and now I am hopefully getting my moon boot taken off this Friday. That's how much time has passed.
How did you break it, Sophie?
If I'm being honest,
Yes, how did you break it?
Yeah, I'm
old
curious.
age. age. Old age.
Is that it? Is
Old
that it? It was
age.
just old age, yeah? It wasn't embarrassing at all, was it?
Embarrassing. I was a hero in this situation.
Yeah.
I saved some lives. I made some people very happy. I did not just laugh at my friend and misstep and break my foot. Not even fall. Nothing big, just misstepped. Something like that. That can't break a foot. You can't break a foot just taking a wrong step. If I'm being honest, then I'm gonna blame these two women who bumped into
always blaming
my friend and
someone
I.
else.
Long story cut short is two rude women bumped into my friend and I as we were coming back from lunch and didn't say sorry to us or didn't acknowledge that they had bumped into us so hard that we like pretty much not fell, but you know, they'd blown my friend away, who's quite, you know, who's like good size, and
size.
acknowledged each other and asked each other if they were okay. Didn't acknowledge us at all. And so my friend was making a joke of it and just calling out like, yeah, we're fine, don't worry about us. And so I was laughing. And as I was laughing, I was looking into his direction, and where he was walking, the road was flat, whereas where I was walking, it wasn't even a proper ledge. There was a ledge of like that size, and I did not see it.
Even the word
Misstepped.
ledge is arguable.
Yeah, it's
more of a
I don't even know
minor
what to call
protrusion.
it. And I misstepped, and I have been out of action for 6 weeks. And you know what the hardest part of it has been? We have had such good
sounds like a
beach
dick joke.
weather in Sydney.
Oh yeah, no beach.
We have had such good beach weather.
hardest part has been?
I didn't get to go to the beach for this summer when it was peak beach season. Look at me, my tan's all gone.
You're almost back in winter, I guess.
Yeah.
It's autumn now.
Now that I'm
yeah.
thinking about
We're
it.
well into autumn.
I might as well just blend with you guys.
Wow, racist.
I mean, to be fair, I did the opposite program. I actually just came back from a small trip to Hokkaido to like get in my last little bit of winter, my last little bit of snow, because it's been warming up very rapidly here in Tokyo too. We had like a 23 degrees last week, and then I think cherry blossom in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I was like, I did not get enough snow this year. When I went back to Germany, which was great because okay, I love snow and I love winter, and so it was snowing like crazy for like 3 weeks in Germany. I came back, it went up to like 20 for Christmas and New Year's. 20 degrees on Christmas. I was like, fuck that. I left and immediately it started snowing again.
That sounds like a very tolerable Australian Christmas.
And I did go skiing one more time, and then like, I mean, to be fair, the last day we went, it was snowing really heavily, but the first day was just like raining really badly. So my winter has been quite unsatisfactory this year, I will say, for a winter enthusiast. So I had to get like some more snow in Hokkaido.
What is snow?
Have you
I'm
actually
unaware
seen
of this
snow, Liam?
concept as an Australian. Yes, I've seen snow. It's a joke. But that, like, to be fair, the first time I saw snow was very recently in the grand scheme of my life. It was like 5 years ago when I went to New York. Like 5 or 6 years ago, whenever that was. Got off the subway into Times Square and it was snowing, and I was like, shit, this is like the movies. I've never seen this happen before.
So have you had it once before or like multiple times?
Have I had it?
Yeah, had snow.
Had snow?
Like have you seen snow, touched snow more than once? Is like
Yes,
my question.
yes. I mean, it was snowing almost every day. And I was there for like a week. Yeah, otherwise, I've been to Europe 3 times during a European winter, and I've still not actually seen snow in Europe. Even Iceland, of all places. I mean, I saw snow in the distance on like the mountaintops, but like not near me. We were there in like early November-ish.
That's rare.
So it wasn't like quite peak winter. It's freezing, but it wasn't like snow freezing. We were there to see the aurora.
Did you see it?
Aurora.
We did see
Why
the
did you say it
aurora
like that?
because it's a fun way to say it.
So did you know that we have our own version? I think I can't remember what it's called. Like
The Australis.
Yeah, the
And you can
Australis.
see it in Tasmania, I believe.
yeah. So I actually went to Tasmania a couple months ago, and it was my first time. Such a beautiful state.
It is. We give it shit for no reason.
I understand. Like, I wouldn't want to live there.
Oh, God,
But
no.
it's a beautiful place to go to. Yeah, it's very quiet. But it's beautiful. We went to Launceston though, so I wasn't where you would typically see the Australas. But from what I hear as well, it might only happen a couple days out of the year, and you can't plan ahead to go see it because you'd only find out a couple hours before if it was happening or not. And it's apparently not very visible to the naked eye.
No, it's not like how they make it look in the nicely edited photographs. It's the same with the Aurora Borealis. Like, you could book an Aurora tour, but they couldn't guarantee that you'd actually see it until like an hour beforehand. And even then, when we did see it, it was really cool, but it wasn't like the whoosh, vivid lights that you see in all the pictures.
I saw really nice ones when I flew back actually for Christmas, because we flew over the North Pole.
That's very Christmas appropriate.
Yeah. So we, instead of flying, like usually you just fly over Russia for like 10 hours straight to Europe, but instead we flew past Anchorage, where basically Russia and the US are almost touching, and then over the North Pole, over Iceland, Greenland, Iceland, and then I actually like transferred in Zurich. But yeah, so like while we were flying over the North Pole, I just like for some whatever reason, which is like stupid because it was in the middle of the night, and they're like, please everyone close your windows, and I'm like, why? Like, I want to see things when I'm in the plane. Like, I understand if it's like an early morning flight and people still like are tired and they want to sleep, and then it's like bright outside. I understand when it's like, please keep your blinds down. But if it's dark outside, I want to look south. Whatever, I just opened the blinds and it was like beautiful aurora, and everyone in the plane missed it except the pilots, I guess, so joke's on them.
And the pilots were actually like, they were thinking the same thing. Haha, I want these guys to miss out on this. Please close your blinds.
Yeah, probably.
This is a special experience for just us. It was just the pilots going on a
Please,
bit of a
everyone.
date. They wanted to feel a bit special. It's like, it's us time.
Trying to monopolize the aurora.
Like, being a pilot sounds fantastic. Like, all of like, you must have such amazing views out of that cockpit, like, just because you have like the all-round view basically of the sky, and like looking to the front while like everyone else has to like sit at their tiny window.
I mean, it's probably
It's a very
much more
shitty window
comfortable
too.
in the cockpit than it is in like economy on an international flight, I would agree. I'm not sure I'd enjoy being a pilot though. I feel like that lifestyle is very nomadic.
Yeah, very difficult.
Also, I guess it's not that healthy.
No, any sort of shift work.
With all the cosmic radiation you're exposed to over time. Also, to be fair, I've heard that basically planes are like 99% autopiloted at this point. It's basically just the pilot starting and landing the plane. And even there, I would argue, like, I wonder if it's just one of those reasons where they're like, well, the pilots need to be doing it, because otherwise how do we justify paying them $200,000 a year in salary? Like,
There's something comforting about knowing that there's a pilot.
I feel like you can tell the difference between a good pilot and a bad pilot. I feel like you definitely feel like, oh, that was a smooth landing, as opposed to, what the fuck was that?
there's a lot of factors, no? Like, if it's like windy
I'm
outside,
sure there are.
like there might be like a wind gust just like catching the plane last second or something.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I'm not discounting that. But still, I'm sure that there are also some, like, I'm sure pilots also have a role to play.
I mean, they have to train for how long? They should be equipped to deal with a little wind gust.
That's true. But then it might like still shake a little bit is what I'm saying.
A little
Like,
bit's
not
fine, but I get
saying-
what Sophie's saying. Sometimes you have like a sort of landing, and then other times it's like a
True. One funny thing about Japan, fun fact, apparently like they caught a bunch of pilots being super drunk at work, like basically at work, coming to work. And so they now have like new like laws and regulations where you basically have to like basically take a take an
Wait,
breathalyzer test before you fly.
Was there no law about no alcohol before a flight before?
I think it was definitely prohibited. It was just that no one was checking.
Alcoholic pilots are a bit of a global stereotype, aren't they? Because I remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer became a pilot and he was always just like in the bar.
Maybe that's just the airplane culture. I feel like a friend of mine was commenting on this before when we were talking about when we were going to Tasmania. Like, flights, when you're catching flights, it seems to be the only excusable reason to be drinking like first thing in the morning. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. If you're catching a flight, it's like, oh yeah, I'll go to the airport bar.
Looking through the news through the news is pretty funny too, because you have like 2016, 2018, 2019. I think the one that I heard about was actually because it was a Japanese pilot, this one, that tried to take off to Japan from Heathrow. And then he got detained because he was super wasted.
Super
That's-
wasted.
Terrifying in a way.
Or maybe this actually proves Manu's theory that pilots don't really do much, and that's why they're so confident in drinking so heavily.
Maybe it exposes a very dangerous trend that we have where like half of our pilots are consistently drunk and our lives are all just hanging by a thread.
And that explains the landing.
It's okay. If you're too drunk, you can just do like some more Coke,
Yeah.
and that'll balance it out.
It's very hard to get Coke on international flights, man.
Whew, I should be a pilot. Wait, I
Until
am
they
a pilot.
have
What the
inside
fuck?
sources.
But I do enjoy flying overall. Again, I think it would be a fun job if it, as you said, Liam, if it didn't came with like the downsides. Also, little news that I shared with Liam earlier. I last month I got introduced to the fantastic world of Magic: The Gathering.
Yep. Hello, Magic.
By another
Wallet.
YouTuber called Datus. Yes, and I have been sinking an amount of money into this in the last month and a half that I just cannot justify with any
Let me ask,
means.
are you buying physical cards?
Yeah, only.
Now I have to ask, are you buying them in English, German, or Japanese?
I'm buying them mostly in English. I have a few Japanese cards, but then I usually have like one.
So they sell like English packs in Japan.
Yes, though I would like the selection is not quite as good as the Japanese one. Like in Japanese, you can get like older sets, while the English ones are more limited to like more recent stuff usually. Except like sometimes on Amazon you can find good stuff, but at the like game stores I've been to, they're like more limited to like the recent stuff. I have cards back there. Like I will, but I do have the physical ones, which is I think way more fun.
It
to
is way
have.
more fun. That's the fun of the TCG. You got to have the
And
rectangular
more
cardboard.
social, yeah.
It's interesting to pick up that hobby in Japan. Is there like a large Magic scene over there?
Yes, there is, and so I've like went to a bunch of Magic stores, and it's actually, even though I'm an anime YouTuber, it's like my first time ever properly delving into like the Japanese weep scene in like its actual sense. I feel like I'm more of like a anime manga consumer from the safety of my couch, if that makes sense. So I'm not a very big like merchandise collector dude. Like there's like stuff I will get like if I find something occasionally that I enjoy, but I more like stumble across it. I never like go out to buy anime goods or something like that. And so I've never been to like, or like not that much at least, to like these like stores where you like, you know, get all the anime goodies and the weep culture. But with Magic: The Gathering, like when I went to those, there's like, and it's like professional. It's like a giant store. There's like
Just dedicated to
like
magic.
at least like 30 or 40 like people in the back like selling, like packing cards and like, you know, for like online sales and whatever, and like what they get in and like labeling them. There's like a whole counter with like 4 or 5 people where you can sell your cards. There's like I think like a room made for like 100 people with like at least like 50 tables or something where you can play, and like there's tournaments and stuff going on. And so I was sitting down there, like we were like kind of like unboxing like a few cards, like booster packs and stuff. And then at some point, like, because we were just asking, can we sit down? And the staff was like, yeah, you can like just sit over there, like no problem. And then suddenly like someone taps me on the shoulder and is like, in Japanese, you have to leave now. And I was like, why, what? And they just like held like this like basically this is our reservation. You have to leave. And they
Reserved
weren't,
tables?
yeah, and they weren't like,
That is so
you know, oh, but
Japanese.
you know, yeah, take no worries. Like it's not like no worries, take your time, take it easy. They're like, TikTok motherfucker. It's like we're playing here. It's like, I was like, okay, they're serious. They're not playing around. Like, okay.
Chantel and I went to an Australian equivalent of a store like that in Parramatta a couple of weeks ago, where I got recognized for one of the first times in person. It was a fine encounter, but in that Magic store, they had behind like walls of what I can only describe as what looks like bulletproof glass. I don't know if this will mean anything to you, but they had an entire set of the Power 9. Or I think
Is
there
that
might
the
have been
gems?
one
Is
missing.
that the gemstones?
So that's the Moxes, the Black Lotus, and there's a couple
I've
of
heard
other
of them,
cards. Yeah. Like the value of those cards, those like 8 cards that were sitting there. I think they were missing one Mox, which is very unfortunate. But I was just like, oh. It's like walking into a bank vault.
Yeah, and I will say, like the amount of money that's being transferred there ridiculous. Because, for example, I did end up, like, from one booster pack, I ended up pulling, like, a very good card, a decent card, I'd say, which is Sylvian Library, I think, Sylvanian. I'm not sure what the exact name was. Very good green card that lets you, like, get lands. And so, like, I was just
Classic
curious
green maneuver.
in what, like, how the entire, like, selling process in the store would look like. So I looked it up on their website, which is, they sold it for 3,000 yen, which is, like, $30. So I was like, nice. So I went to sell it.
That's reasonable.
They gave me half of it.
Yeah, they're not going to sell
what
you
they
at
list.
a retail
So-
price. They're going to make a profit.
But I feel like that makes sense, but I didn't expect them to like buy the cards for half the price. Like, I'm like, they must, like, that's a whole giant business what they're having running there, which is ridiculous. Yeah.
And I guess on that note, that's our first week back. Magic the Gathering, it's a good place to get into business, folks. If you're into business ideas, there you go.
If you wanna spend a lot of money.
Or if you want to make a lot of money, start up a magic store. But in other news, keep tuned because we will have more episodes. Thanks for watching us. And I'm going to say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.